Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell, back from my run. And today is the first day that the church has closed. They closed. Did you see President Russell M. Nelson's little YouTube video yesterday? When I found it, after uploading the last video of the night, it said that it had been out for an hour. And so I watched it and put it with my video. He says in order to help contribute or help participate in the fight against the coronavirus, he says, we're closing the church. Again, proving what I've been telling you guys all this time. They have hundreds of billions of dollars. And for what? Because they say in their first presidency statement, we're following the parable of the talents, where the servants gave the Lord, which means master and servant, Depeche Mode, interest invested on top of the talents that they were given by the Lord in the first place. That's what the church is claiming. We're going to give Jesus Christ, when he comes for the second coming, of which we're not going to build the city of Zion, a place of refuge for people to flee to when the virus occurs and people are forced to fight for their lives because the economy is going to crash, businesses are going to close, people are going to be out of work, and they can't buy food. And Nelson, a medical doctor, with this being the CEO of an organization designed to be charitable, not just for food, but for clothing, with the Deseret Industries. We have the Deseret Industries, where you can go and buy clothing at a cheaper price. Most of it's used, but Mormons can go to their bishop and get a clothing order at Deseret Industries and get the clothes for free. And they have the food, like I'm saying, with the bishop storehouses, following the pattern of the Bible, which I don't understand why they didn't do it immediately, but they designed Welfare Square after the Great Depression, or during the Great Depression in America, and then afterward created bishop storehouses for Welfare Square to then distribute to the bishop storehouses. But they stop. They don't expand the bishop storehouses out into the world like they do churches and temples. and they've got hundreds of billions of dollars. Let me repeat that. Hundreds of billions of dollars. They've got bishop storehouses, they've got Deseret Industries, and they closed. With a medical doctor as the CEO who speaks Chinese. They closed. Unbelievable. It's just... It's like you need evidence in court, and you gotta try to find it, because the defendant always tries to hide it when they're guilty. They make it complicated for prosecutors to find the evidence and prove their case against them. Well, the church is just handing the evidence. You want evidence against us? Here you go. It's just, oh my God. And so this one I was going to specifically talk about my Paleo-Hebrew translation research, because again, remember, the church blacklisted me for being a translator. a translator. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who had farms established because of John Welsh and his Hebrew chiasmus of the Book of Mormon, which is actually plagiarism of the late war. See, he led Mormons to believe that the Book of Mormon contained Hebrew. And so Mormons are all into Hebrew, and Joseph Smith retranslated the Hebrew text of the Bible, just a portion of the first verse of the Bible, but nobody could figure out what he was doing, how he was doing this. And so I stepped in as a Mormon, finding out about all this, saying, well, I'm going to find out then. If nobody knows, I'm going to find out. Because growing up, I wanted to find something new. I wanted to discover something nobody else had discovered. So I actually got a map of the world printed out on my parents' printer, which was the old ink version with the glossy paper. But had it all printed out, and I drew a chart, a map, or a path map lines on the world map of where in the world there were things that were mysteries. So Bigfoot, Yeti, and so I was gonna leave home, get away from my Nazi Mormon parents, and go be a traveler in the world to discover something new. And I'd even tried to design my own code and my own language. That's what I was as a child. And so growing up in the Mormon church, you know, we have the Book of Abraham. Nobody knows how to translate the Egyptian. The prophets, seers, and revelators, they don't call themselves translators because they don't know. And Paleo-Hebrew. Joseph Smith was doing Paleo-Hebrew. You know, even Pele-El in the temple. Pele-El. Oh, no, you can't show that, Travis. No, you're going to burn in outer darkness. It's pay, mouth, lay, to, or unto. Doesn't matter to me. El, God, the Canaanite God. Mouth to the Canaanite God. It's that simple. And so when they reverted back to the English version, you know, oh God, hear the words of my mouth, repeated 3 times. You know, I wanted to know what it meant, and nobody knew. And that was a simple one. It's just unbelievable. And so, yeah, I just walked right into it. I've told the story before, but yeah, I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew in February 1997. Then my wife left me in April 1997, telling me her kids were not going to learn Hebrew. And so I had to reconstruct my research because, you know, the wife took it all and then destroyed it. We had floppy disks, so she would have just erased it, deleted it, and had to redo it all. And then, of course, once you figure out the decipherment of the script, then you got to do the vocabulary research. And yes, I did the vocabulary research. This is it. It's massive. It took a long time. I had a computer with my my tax refunds, but I mean, this was a massive work, but I needed to find the answers that the church was refusing to give us, claiming that they were the only ones who could do it. And so in 1998, I'd go to the church. Hey, I figured it out. And then if you see on the, I'm going to try to remember to put it in, it'll be a picture rather than the thumbnail for you, so you can pause on it and actually read it. That's the file that the church sued me, presenting evidence against me. That's the evidence that I'm a terrorist threat. I hope you understand this. If you read the lawsuit that I'm going to put in here, as I've been doing in all my videos now, that little segment that the church provided is my troublemaker file, my blacklist file, that began in 1998. You see the first one there listed. My Paleo-Hebrew decipherment. It's just unbelievable. And then further on down, I think it's the last one, the fourth one, I present them with my translation discovery. Because what I had to do is that the Hebrew text of the Bible was created from 800 to 1000 AD. Remember, Constantine was 330. And so Constantine had already influenced Judaism. And so when you see Elohim being a masculine plural with the im at the end, but they translate it as singular, that's where it comes from, is Constantine with his homoousios, creation. That was not a Greek word until Constantine created it. Constantine not only created God, he created a new word in Greek. And yeah, that's where Elohim became singular. And so when Joseph Smith talks in the King Follett Discourse of talking to a learned Jew, which was Sykes, Rabbi Sykes, who taught him about Rakiyang rather than Rakia, facsimile number 1 explanation, he's the one who said, well, yeah, it's supposed to be plural, but it would ruin the Bible. Yeah, because the Jews had to conform to the Holy Roman Empire. And Islam as well. Allah, it's not one God, it's multiple gods in one. Just like Christianity with Constantine. Before Constantine, we had Father and Son separate. Huh. Go figure. It was Constantine who changed it all. And everybody now gets upset when you tell them that their supernatural being that was created out of nothing is a fraud. And yeah, I mean, that's people's belief systems. But if you don't produce the fruit, you have to throw away the seed. It's that simple. But nobody figures that out. You know, and everybody's been living as farmers all these millennia, and they still can't comprehend the simple concept of establishing truth. And so that's what I did. This is the vocabulary portion. I had already deciphered the script, and so I needed to do the vocabulary test. That's the vocabulary test. And so I was running 2-letter word combinations and reversing them, and then the 3-letter combinations and reversing them. That's the tests that I was running. That's why they're separate books. It's because each stage required a separate book for research. And thank God for copy and paste. But the initial thing was quite a struggle, because I went through and used Brown, Driver, and Briggs. See there, BDB Reconstructed Dictionary. So despite BDB being really thick, I'm able to condense it into a real thin booklet. But yeah, there it is. It's under Scott and Liddell's and Thesaurus. But yeah, I had to find out if my decipherment theory was correct, and the best way to test it is in the vocabulary. And so I was testing the vocabulary, and that's how I made the discovery that the vocabulary uses determinatives. They're not three-letter words from Semitic Assyrian, as that's why Hebrew is called Semitic, and that's why Jews are called Semitic, is because the Bible was translated wrong. The Hebrew text was wrong because it was after Constantine, and they all wanted to assimilate into the Babylonian captivity that they were in, against Daniel's order, the book of Daniel. Don't participate in anything of the Babylonians. Don't eat their food, don't participate in their culture, don't participate in their religion, their language, anything of Babylonian, stay away. You are Jew. And oops. And so, I had to reconstruct the vocabulary. And the way I did that was taking out the vowels. Because my biblical Hebrew teacher finally sat me down and said, okay, listen. Because I was presenting him with translation after translation for Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 to try to see if there were alternative translations, and he said, listen, there is only one translation because of the vowels that were put in 800 to 1000 AD. And there were different groups who worked on different parts of the Bible, which is why it's a mess. You have the Yod, which in one Masoretic group represented the masculine plural ending. Huh? Whereas the other tradition was the im. And, simple stuff like that, but the different Masoretic groups that were working on this construction of the Bible had their different vowels that they used as well. And so there's an inconsistency in the Torah, as well as the rest of the Tanakh. And so, eliminate all of it. Go back to the core letters that made up the text, because that's what the Jews were claiming, is that their 800 to 1000 was based on earlier documents. They go all the way back to Moses. So if it goes back to Moses, that means Paleo-Hebrew, not Babylonian Semitic. So not only did I have to eliminate the vowels, I then had to test the vocabulary to identify the Paleo-Hebrew vocabulary from all of the other mixtures, which may include Greek, but I found out that Greek and Hebrew came from the same origin source when I deciphered the script, because the script is the exact same script as Paleo-Greek. Paleo-Greek had extra letters, though, when they separated from Phoenician. Paleo-Hebrew kept all of Phoenician. And so I call Paleo-Hebrew Phoenician and Phoenician Paleo-Hebrew. One and the same for me. And so I had to test if, first of all, the script is correct, and test to see if I could identify differences in vocabulary. And yes, I was. I can isolate out Aramaic, I can isolate out Semitic, and identify the core Paleo-Hebrew because of this test. And that's how I identified that Paleo-Hebrew is not Semitic. It uses determinatives like Egyptian does. And it's Paleo-Hebrew, therefore, is just a 2-letter vocabulary, not a 3-letter of Semitic. And the 3rd letter becomes the determinative. And so that was my discovery for the vocabulary. And so once I was able to isolate Paleo-Hebrew from the other mixtures, corruptions of the language over time, I then was able to begin work on translation. And so with the reconstructed dictionary, which isn't the isolating of Paleo-Hebrew, it's all of the vocabulary from all of the languages into one, because I needed to see, because I was expecting a mixture of vocabulary in the Torah, and sure enough, there was. When I did my translation, I had to use different words from different languages as I went along, and words that are considered in one passage from one language, when you use that word again, it's another language that's being thrown in. So big inconsistencies in the Paleo-Hebrew text, or in the Hebrew text, biblical Hebrew text. And so, but I was able to identify that Joseph Smith was right. He was trying to say that the original biblical text was Paleo-Hebrew. And that's how Elohim becomes plural, as he says. And so when Louis Zucker goes to BYU and tells the Mormons, Joseph Smith is wrong. No, Louis, you're wrong. Joseph Smith was right. You have to eliminate the vowels, go back to Paleo-Hebrew, which is not Semitic. And I went to the church with that, as you see there on their troublemaker file of me that they presented to the prosecution in the case against me, which they were doing for the church. They're the main people who were victimized by my lawsuit. Yes, my lawsuit. I filed a lawsuit in 2008. They turned around and sued me and got the state to represent the church rather than the state representing me when I filed the lawsuit. And they called me a terrorist. They called my lawsuit a weapon of mass destruction. They sealed the case so that it's not for public display. Though I'm showing you the charges and giving you the case number there in that little segment, and they disappeared me. And that's my lawsuit against the church, is because of what they did in 2008. And they paid the person who disappeared me, Dr. Cohn. And as you see by the last name, she's Jewish. And what she did to disappear me was do exactly what the Nazis did to the Jews. To disappear them. And then murder them. 6 million, as I indicated, I was watching Hunters yesterday. And here it is, a Jew paid by the Mormon church who had me arrested was ordering the state of Utah to have me disappeared. They're paying this Jewish psychiatrist to tell the judge, we need to disappear this guy. Do you see how evil the church is? It's not just a simple thing of, oh, Travis knows translation, he's going to expose us. No, they elaborated a cover-up conspiracy to disappear me altogether, so that this research will never see the light of day. My research on the picture, or the script of Paleo-Hebrew, would never see the light of day. Just like my wife, first ex-wife, destroyed all my research. And as you Mormons read the Book of Mormon, Lamanites want to destroy the records of the Nephites. So that they can maintain their delusions? Yeah. They established traditions, and that became truth. Book of Mormon, go figure. And it's plagiarized. And yet it was plagiarized for a purpose. They specifically put certain plagiarisms in certain places. But, the church critics don't get that. Gerald and Sandra Tanner, the people who did the computer investigation, none of them talk about it. They just say, plagiarism, so the whole thing is bogus, church is wrong, stay away from them. Join Christianity instead. With the Constantine created God. So do you understand, everybody, that the original religion that gave birth to all other religions that strayed from it, that de-evolved from it, was one of Father and Son. Separate. Not supernatural. Separate. And so here I am going to the church saying, hey, Joseph Smith was right. I know how to translate the rest of the Bible now. I can restore the Bible as a Paleo-Hebrew text. Because I'd also deciphered Egyptian petroglyphs and made the discovery that the Bible stories were taken from the Egyptian petroglyphs. There were some mess-ups, of course, from 800 to 1000, not just with the different words, but with the storytelling of the Egyptian petroglyphs. And so, for example, Cain, which under one of the languages means penis, we name our son Penis. And our other son we name Shepherd. And so, Penis kills the shepherd. It's just hilarious. I mean, these are like Hebrew geek jokes. But it's just funny. It's like a mathematician or a computer nerd who tells jokes in ones and zeros. But they reverse the roles. Cain is supposed to be the one in charge of the flock, according to the Egyptian story. Seth was over the flocks, and Osiris was over the grains, the crops, the fruit, and Abel was supposed to be that. And so the Jewish author reversed that. And then notice that Cain kills Abel, just like the Egyptian story, but Cain is banished from the community and starts his own community, rather than the Bible author instead changed it to Adam and Eve have another son, and they name him Seth. And that's who Noah comes from, is this new child who takes on the name which should be Cain's name. And so Noah is supposed to come from Cain, not Seth, but Seth is an indication that they were taking it from the Egyptian records, but altering it because the biblical author didn't like it that Noah came from Cain, because that's the apostate lineage. Can't have somebody who's a prophet of God come from the apostate lineage. They didn't understand what the Egyptians were prophesying about, because scholars today call them myths. And so people think, oh, okay, fake stories. No, guys, they were educating the people through these stories. Not only was it education, but it was prophecy. It was the most brilliant method of educating a people that we don't even apply today. We have storytelling, but no stories that we have compare to their stories, because they were so compact in their information. It's just brilliant. And so it makes translation voluminous. You know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. No, it's worth 1,000 volumes. And it may be a bit of an exaggeration, but there are multiple levels of translation that I've deciphered or discovered with the decipherment of the petroglyphs. And the biblical story does use several of those levels. The creation, Heliopolis creation glyph, for example, is one of those, where it's Genesis chapter 1, but it's also utilized in other areas as the genealogy of Adam and Eve with their Cain and Abel. So it shows the difference right there. That's why Genesis chapter 2 verse 4 said, now these are the generations, the offspring, the human offspring of heaven and earth. What? Heaven and earth are human? What? Yeah, because they're taking it from the Egyptian glyphs. And they're utilizing the different translations of the glyphs. And the Egyptians explain it, but you got to use different texts that go over the different translations. And so you can't just say, well, the text only gives this. There's more to it when you understand all the translations of a single glyph. So, yeah, and the church had me disappeared because I did it and not them, when they didn't even bother to try. Again, they claimed they had the seed, they didn't bother to plant it and produce fruit. And so instead of planting it themselves to find the fruit and get the fruit, they attack the one who did, who was born and raised in their apostate church, and figured it out, because Joseph Smith, the founder, said that was the way it was. And all he wanted to do was figure out what it was. That was it. I had no intention of taking over the church. And yet the church felt threatened that that's what I was going to do. So, there you go. No SNL today, or last night, so I don't need to worry about watching that. So I'll just see about carrying on with videos. I finished Hunters, so I don't need to worry about that anymore. So enjoy your Sabbath with me, Travis Wayne Goodsell. I have noticed the analytics are showing that people are spending more time watching my videos now. You're not watching this part, as people are only able to stick around for 10 to 15 minutes on average. So I guess there's some of you who are lasting this long, but like I said, you got today off because the church shut down. They closed. Unbelievable.